Well, hello there, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Two Sons Podcast. I am your co-host, followed by my wonderful host here, Joey.
Good morning.
And today we are very excited to dive into one of our favorite discussions and topics that we have when it comes to the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and that is Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yes, sir. Guardians of the
Yes,
Galaxies.
sir. And today
Yes.
we will be discussing Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, which recently just came out, I believe, last week. And me and my brother have both finally saw it, so we have a lot to talk about. We have a lot of opinions, and today's episode is basically just going to focus around this. Um,
Yes.
so pretty excited to talk about it. Before we, dive into the further conversation, there is going to be some slight changes when it comes to YouTube. So instead of putting out like more than one part, because I mean, let's be honest, I mean, everybody usually watches the first part and then nobody really watches the other parts. What I'm going to do moving forward is that I'm going to release the first part of our conversation in video form. And basically, if anybody wants to hear the rest of the conversation, you could just check us out via podcast on whatever podcast platforms that you use to listen to us. So you'll get a little bit of a teaser of the beginning of the conversation. And then if you want to hear the rest of the conversation, just listen to us on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts. And that's how we'll do it moving forward, because I think it's just easier just to have one like nice like 35-40 minute video on the discussion, and then instead of just putting out like three parts, like it's just easier to do the one part, and then we'll just move the conversation to the audio version. But obviously, for example, if you listen to us on Spotify in podcast form, the whole podcast will be available, but just on YouTube the first part of the conversation will be available, and then if you want to hear the rest of it, obviously just go to any of the podcasting platforms that you listen to on us too.
hmm
But that's pretty much the only announcement. Thank you guys for all the love and support on there so far. Our subscriber count and our viewership has grown exponentially. So I think it's safe to say I think we're at like 24 subscribers. And the
Really
most
cool.
recent video that I put out, basically just giving you a deep dive into where I work and what goes on at the store, that got like 33, 34 views. So that's been pretty popular. So once again, thank you guys for all the support on there and especially on the podcast as well. So moving forward, Joey, it's early Monday morning. We're getting rise and shine. This is how we're starting off the week. So how we doing so far?
We're doing okay.
All
This
right, all right.
weekend, this weekend was a little much. If you guys don't know, Fast X came out this weekend, so anticipated that it was going to be pretty busy at work, but it was very busy at work. Probably the busiest since Black Panther, in my opinion. Definitely, along those lines of just larger crowds and stuff. It was definitely a little more than Guardians. Again, I think Guardians is far better, but that's always the same thing. I would love to do a video of what it's like at my work, but I don't think we will all have the leisure to do that because it's always so busy. And especially with the summer coming up now, even during the week, it's probably still going to be busy. But otherwise, if you guys don't know, I graduate this Wednesday coming up, so that's exciting. And then after that, we'll see what's going on. We have a little vacation that we're gonna do a couple of days afterwards, so that's nice. Um, and then we'll go from there. Same old stuff. Kind of trying to get rid of some things and rearrange and pack around. So we'll see what happens. But for now, very excited to talk about Guardians because I actually did just run a showing of this myself when it came out because I didn't get to see it the opening weekend. So I just waited until that Monday and I ran a showing myself, and it was great. But we'll get more into that later on. But otherwise, doing all right. Sorry about not putting this out last week. A couple of things came up and it just got too busy and a little too much. Last week was my finals week. So I'm finally done with that, which is great. And now, hopefully we can move on to bigger and better things. Most likely our episode structure and when it comes out will change. I think we're going to try to shoot for Tuesdays right now, recording wise. Um, and hopefully have episodes come out Wednesdays. If not, it might be scattered, but just always keep a lookout on the socials for that stuff. Because I think regardless, people just come back and watch them whenever they're out. But thank you guys for being patient as always, and we appreciate all the love and support, and especially on YouTube since that is growing. But yeah, I'm doing okay. How you doing, Philip?
I'm doing pretty good. It's always nice to start off the week by not working. Usually I'm actually working Mondays, but at least for this week, I had off. So, got a little bit of schoolwork done. Gonna record my favorite podcast with my favorite brother. I mean, you're my only brother, but it's okay.
Yeah.
Um, and otherwise, doing pretty good. The summer semester just started for me, so that's off to a good start. And work's been good. Been getting some good hours. Recently, just got two raises actually. I went from like 11.50, and then now like at the end of next week I'll be making like $12 an hour. So
That does not sound like a lot, but I
it
I
it
get
does
it where
not,
you
but
live.
again, like depending on the state, cost of living, blah blah, all that.
I'm surprised you got raises. Minimum wage went up, or
No, I mean, just based on our performance, our owner just gives us raises depending on how well we're doing, and she's just been very pleased with my performance. So, I've been getting some extra moolah here and there, and then
very cool,
like my
very
brother
cool.
said, the beginning of June we have our vacation, so that's going to be a great way to start off June, and then pretty much after that is like our birthdays, and then like I mean,
Yeah,
pretty much be over in a flash. So,
it's gonna be a busy month.
we got some a lot of exciting stuff to look forward to, but overall doing pretty good. So I'm excited to get into this conversation here.
Yeah.
So I thought to start out the conversation, like any movie review, we should just kind of go with like the basics, like the fundamentals, pretty much like how Guardians has been doing and everything. So to start off, I thought we'd just talk about the reviews. So thanks to good old Rotten Tomatoes, with our wonderful love-hate relationship that we have with them. Uh, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, first of all, it is certified fresh, which is obviously great. On the tomato meter, it has an 82%, which in my mind, I think is a little low. I could definitely see this being like a upper 80% movie, even like a low
Mhm.
90. However, the audience score has a nice, lovely, fresh bucket of popcorn, and we are at 94% when it comes to the audience score. So, I mean, I just want to hear your opinions on those scores and whether or not you think it's pretty accurate or not.
I'm not surprised about the audience score at all. Honestly, I've really heard about this was positive things from fans. Um, Again, I've been hearing the arguments of this being the best in the trilogy. I've been hearing the arguments of this being the best movie since Endgame. As we all know, if you guys ever see any Marvel trailer or anything on TV or something or online, usually there'll be a quote from a journalist or somebody saying best films, best Marvel film since Endgame. I truly believe this has actually been the best film Marvel has put out since Endgame, and yes, I'm putting it over Spider-Man No Way Home, Shang-Chi, Black Panther, and we'll get into that later. Um, but fans, not surprised at all. We all, I mean, both of you probably know we're big fans of James Gunn. He does it once again, and truly, he put out the best trilogy Marvel has probably seen, securing that title with this film. Critics, I'm a little disappointed in the critics, considering that they again 80s isn't low, but 82, I feel like compared to what the other Guardians movies are ranked at, I'm pretty sure the other Guardians movies are ranked a little higher in terms of Rotten Tomatoes. Um, Maybe I could see why, but I really feel like there's no parts in the story or anything that would make it the score. I would probably move it up to about an 88 to a 92 would be the range I would put it at. Just because there's so much in this film, and I think the balance is honestly perfect on the way they go through things. Um, so I'm not completely disappointed in the critic score, but I wish it was a little higher. And audience score, I'm not really surprised at all. I actually think this is the highest audience score. I gotta look at Spider-Man No Way Home. That's probably in the 90s as well. But I think this is one of the highest of Marvel films, audience score wise, since Endgame has come out. So this is where you really see the fans get back into, I guess, loving Marvel. Again, we see a lot of we've done episodes on it. We've seen a lot of Marvel fans go back and forth on arguing about things when they come out. They're like, oh yeah, and then a couple months later they kind of go down on it, or they like to flip flop, and I don't really like that about Marvel fans. But yeah, I mean, again, I think that I definitely think the critic score can go up a little more, but I'm not completely disappointed in it, and I agree with the audience score. I'm not surprised with that at all.
Yeah, no, I mean, overall, the scores are pretty accurate. I mean, like I said, I wish the critic score was definitely like in the high 80s, at least low 90s, because I do think it deserves that. However, it is certified fresh, and the audience score is obviously well up into the 90s. So it's pretty accurate. I agree with all that. And moving on, besides the scores, just to go into a little bit of a background, about the movie. Um, so obviously the runtime is 150 minutes. So I think quickly breaking that down, that's about 2.5 hours.
Yeah,
So
it's about 2 hours 27 minutes.
but for the runtime, honestly, I felt like 2.5 hours actually went by pretty quickly, just because at least with this Guardians movie, it's very fast paced. It's like one after another, and it flows very well. So you don't feel like you're getting like stuck with like boring conversation or boring backstory. It's just constantly like go go go, and it's like
Yeah,
each like scene gives you like a different emotion. So there'll be like one scene where it's like action packed and intense, and the next thing you know it's like, oh, really heartbreaking, and you're crying, and then you're back to
yeah,
like haha funny moment, and then like so you're kind of just all over the place. But for almost like a 2.5 hour movie, it does a really good job of pacing itself. Obviously, as we discussed, it is directed by James Gunn, obviously based on the Marvel comics. It's produced by Kevin Feige. Some of these starring actors include Chris Pratt as Star Lord, Zoe Saldana as Gamora, Dave Batista as Drax, Karen Gillian. I'm not
Nebula,
sure. Nebula. Yes, thank you. Palm Clementif.
Mantis.
Okay, thank you. Vin Diesel obviously as Groot, Bradley Cooper as Rocket, and then we have William Poulter. Was that Adam Warlock?
Yeah, yeah.
We actually have Sean Gunn.
He's crackling.
Okay, is he James Gunn's brother?
Yeah, he's been in like all his movies pretty much.
Oh, okay, cool. Obviously we have Sylvester Stallone. We have Nathan Fillion. Linda Cardellini.
She played Lila, I believe. That's Hawkeye's wife actually. Like
Yes,
in the movies, but she also voiced Lila. And then you just have a couple of other actors that voice the other Rocket's friends.
right.
And then you had other like you had the what's her name? Oh my gosh, she was just in Fast and Furious. The girl she played Ratcatcher 2 in Suicide Squad. She played like Uda or something, I think was the name in the film.
Mhm.
You would know
Yes,
when you see her.
I know who you're
Yeah,
talking about.
I just can't remember her name off the top of my head. I think
Was she the manager at that?
yeah, I just said Uda.
Okay, yeah, that's what I thought.
Yeah.
And then finally we have I'm gonna totally butcher this. I apologize. Chuck Woody,
Oh
uh
yes, High
Woody.
Evolutionary guy. Yeah, yeah,
Yes,
I know.
I knew it was the High Evolutionary guy, but when I saw the name, I was like, oh god, I'm not gonna be able to pronounce this.
Yeah.
So it released in the United States on May 5th, 2023. The budget for this movie was 250 million, and currently at the box office, it has made 659.1 million. So, I mean, obviously well above their budget. We were discussing it before. I think it's going to obviously project into at least 1 billion. Depending on how long they keep it out in theaters, I think it's going to reach close enough to a billion. Maybe like, high 900 millions, like, somewhere around there, but I definitely think it has the capacity to break a billion. Um, and obviously, we have a star-studded cast, all of our favorite Guardians, and even some nice new faces coming back. And overall, I thought the acting was phenomenal. I thought everybody, played their role to a T. For the last Guardians movie, I think everybody brought their all. Even like, some of the newer characters. I mean, obviously the High Evolutionary, probably one of the best villains, so far to come out of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. He does a
Hmm.
really good job. I mean, it must have been probably really hard for him to do certain scenes.
Yeah.
He does a really good job, acting out those scenes and really making you like hate this guy's guts. He's a good actor when you're like, oh my god, I can't stand this guy. You know?
It's kind of interesting because like if you look at the other villains in like the MCU, such as like the ones that people hated, like what was his name in the Winter Soldier? Not Winter Soldier, sorry, Falcon and Winter Soldier. Um, the fake Captain America guy, John Walker, was that his name?
Mhm.
So I'm like, yeah, like everybody hated him, but like in some points you can see his motives, and you can kind of see it in like other villains, but like no, the High Evolutionary is just a dick. Like he's plain and simple. Like he has no motives. Like it doesn't matter. Like whatever he explains in the film, he is just somebody that I believe is pure evil. And again, we're not gonna say his name just because we don't want to butcher him. Um, but he does a phenomenal job at making you despise his character. And I feel like one of the most enjoyable things I like about this film is some of the scenes between him and Star Lord, especially kind of towards the end when they're on Counter Earth, and Star Lord is basically, High Evolutionary is giving his whole villain speech on why he's doing this, and Star Lord's like, "Oh my God, like you're a dick, we get it." Like it's kind of like that's how people feel. It's like we get it, you're an asshole, like just get it over with.
Right.
So, but again, like I just feel like there's, especially if we look at the character development, and I said this in our Marvel hot take, our hot take video. If you look at Karen Gillian's character Nebula, her development in this film is crazy from the first time we saw her. She is one of my favorite characters in this film, along with again, Drax, you see his development so much, and Dave Bautista is probably the best actor, wrestler turned actor, honestly, over John Cena and The Rock. Even Mantis's, development, we didn't see her for as many films. But if you really look at everybody, I mean, you could even argue Kraglin, I believe is his name, the character that Sean Gunn plays as. He definitely has that development throughout the film.
Mhm.
And another little introduction that I like is Cosmo, and I like how James Gunn gave homage to the actual space dog, which I believe his name was Lakia, that the Soviets sent up in whatever that was. Um, and that's because originally in the comics it's a male, but in this one it's a female, and Cosmo is badass.
Mhm.
Also, I do like Adam Warlock. I know a couple of people were like, "Oh, he was too childish," but it made sense for the film, and I thought Will Poulter did a great job, and we'll probably see more of him. Um, Again, I don't know exactly in what, because we'll talk about how it left off and when we'll see it because of the post credits and everything. Um, but again, there's really a lot to like about this film, and we'll get into that a little more later on. But continue what you're saying because I honestly forgot what you were saying.
No, I mean, we were basically just wrapping up, like, just the
Oh
background of
yes,
the film and how much it made and everything.
I will
Um,
say, sorry to cut you off.
no, you're
It
good.
still is selling out at the theater. Again, there was at least like 3 or 4 showings yesterday that were packed.
Mhm.
So it's still going strong, and I think it will break 1 billion probably. And I don't know if any, I don't, Black Panther didn't even break 1 billion. I believe they're at like a 9 and change. So if this breaks 1 billion, this will actually be I don't know how many Marvel movies exactly have over 1 billion besides I think the Avengers ones. I don't know if anything outside the Avengers actually broke 1 billion. Maybe the original Black Panther or something. Um, but this will probably be one of the few Marvel movies that will break over 1 billion if it still goes strong. But there was a lot of stuff coming out. Again, Fast X just came out. Little Mermaid is coming out this week. And then right after Little Mermaid is Spider Verse. And after Spider Verse, it's like Transformers the next week. And after Transformers, it's Flash. And then after Flash, it's everything every week. It's rough.
So just to give you an idea, before we like pivot into the actual conversation,
All
uh,
right.
there has been about, let's see, one, two, three, four, five, six, seven, eight, nine. There's been about 10 Marvel projects that have grossed 1 billion or higher.
Hmm.
The highest grossing superhero film of all time is Avengers Endgame at 2.7 billion. Most of the Avenger movies like all surpassed 1 billion. I mean, we have Avengers Infinity War at 2 billion. We have the original Avengers at 1.5. We have Avengers Age of Ultron at 1.4. And then some of the other ones are Spider-Man No Way Home at 1.9. We have Black
Mhm.
Panther at 1.3. Iron Man 3 at 1.2. Captain America
Mhm.
Civil War at 1.1. Spider-Man Far From Home at 1.1, Captain Marvel
Really?
actually at 1.1, which is really interesting.
Mm.
Um, and then the rest of them are like, in like the high millions. So, in the 900s and the
Yeah.
800s and stuff like that. But just to give you an idea. So I mean, yeah, I mean, so Guardians of the Galaxy's, Volume 3 is definitely on its way to becoming one of the highest grossing superhero movies of all time. I think they could definitely break top 10 at least. So that's gonna be pretty interesting to see. And yeah, no, I mean overall I agree with you said with with all the actors and actresses. I mean they definitely brought their all. A lot of development for everybody, like you said, Nebula, Mantis, Drax. You could argue that, all the Guardians, kind of peaked and had their own little bit of character development, which, obviously led to the end of the movie. And obviously you can speculate, going forward, if we're ever going to see these characters again, what's the future? Because obviously at the very end of the movie, they did say that the legendary Star Lord will return.
Hmm.
They did not say anything about the Guardians, so we don't know what their future holds. Honestly, if this is the last time that we see the Guardians, then you know what? I think how each of their characters ended made sense, and I'm
Yeah.
happy about it. Of course, it would be cool to see the Guardians again, but I mean, we'll just have to wait and see. Unfortunately, we don't know much. Obviously,
I would like to see a show with the new Guardians. I mean,
James
I feel
Gunn
like that would
is
be the best thing to use them for. Like kind of like how they did the holiday special, even if they just want to do a special. I don't think we're gonna see any more Guardians films. As much as people would like to, I think each of the Guardian stories realistically are over. So if they wanted to do, a show where each episode maybe focused on a different Guardian, like what Mantis is up to, what Drax is up to,
Mhm.
what's going on in Nowhere, I believe is the place. Um, that would be really cool to see. But for now, I'm curious of what Star Lord's gonna be in. I think they said he's gonna be in like the Avengers lineup. Since now he's on Earth and everything. That would be kind of cool to see him in the Avengers because if we go back and we look at like Infinity War and Endgame and stuff, he's able to go toe to toe with the Avengers at certain parts. He's smart in that sense of using his gadgets and everything. So I think he'd make a good fit, and he has fought Thanos before. So leading up to the Kang Dynasty or what's the other one? I don't even know what the other Avengers Dynasty is going to be about. Oh, Secret Wars or something. Maybe we'll see him in that. Those are the only projects I can really think about off the top of my head. Um, it is sad to not see the Guardians anymore because I believe their first film was 2014, so almost 10 years ago. Um, and it's really crazy to see the amount of projects and stuff they've been in as well. So it's always sad to see that end, but obviously we know Marvel's going in a different direction now, and it kind of what's the word I'm looking for? Like they're not redoing everything, but it's a new
They're kind
chapter.
of like they're rebranding, kind of almost.
Yeah, it's gonna be a new chapter. We're gonna see a whole new set of team and a new set of characters, which is fine. But
And
I
plus,
think
obviously,
for
James Gunn is moving to DC, and he's going to be taking over the DC universe. So, I mean, even if there were any future Guardian projects, it wouldn't involve him unless they wanted to bring him back as like kind of like a special, case where I mean, like Guardians was his baby. So I mean, if
yeah,
they were to do like any future project, like a TV show or something like that, they would be smart to consult him, because obviously Guardians is so well done
I
that
don't
if
think
they
you could do
tried to,
Guardians without James Gunn, in my
Mhm,
opinion.
I
Because
mean,
again, like he's even talked about how in the Avengers movies, like the Russo brothers or whoever has directed, like he's like that's not what the Guardians would do, like in his mind.
mhm.
So
I could definitely see them doing like some sort of like
yeah,
TV show, like you said, like maybe
yeah,
like,
it would be cool. It would.
like I think it would be cool to see like, what the, former Guardians are up to, or they could do a whole new show on like the new Guardians of the Galaxy that was formed at the end of the movie. And like maybe they're
I kind of really want to
that.
see that only because I want to know like what's going on. Like I really want to know if Adam Warlock is still going to continue to be in the MCU.
Mhm,
It'd be cool to see kind of what this other version of Gamora is up to. I also do like what they did with Gamora in this one.
mhm.
Even at the end, like even though you probably wanted, I think everybody wanted her to go back with the Guardians, but like I feel like this movie had a lot of good messages, on finding yourself, and in the end, like Gamora did have her new family, um, and Peter kind of got his closure with her as well. Obviously, this whole Guardians movie is mainly about Rocket and his backstory, but obviously we still see those smaller stories within it, even with just some lines such as Nebula telling Drax he wasn't born to be a destroyer, he was born to be a dad. It's like something like right there is like literally just telling you what we saw first when we saw Drax, because literally everybody called him Drax the Destroyer. Now he's a dad. because that's what he was all along. And then even with Nebula, and then forget about Rocket and everything. Like, I've been seeing clips all over about, him in other movies talking about how he hates being called a raccoon and blah blah blah. And then at the end, he's like Rocket Raccoon, and then he just like beat the shit out of the High Evolutionary. Like, we'll talk about the fight scenes too, because again, there's so much in this movie that is so good. Um, but the amount of attention they paid to each character in this without losing focus from another one is just, again, I feel like that's something that James Gunn can only do because he knows his characters. This is his trilogy, his movies. It's his Guardians of the Galaxy. Like
Right.
he knows them best, and he closed it out probably in the best way possible.
Mhm. Yeah, no, I agree. Um, very, very well said. And moving forward, I think I know I talked to you about this, but how I want to structure the rest of the episode. Every movie that comes out has a theme, right? They have, certain points that they cover, and obviously when it comes to Guardians of the Galaxy, their trilogy has always covered, specific themes and points that are central to the idea of the Guardians of the Galaxy. So what I want to do is that, because we are talking about the third and final movie, I want to look back at some of the points and themes that have made the Guardians who they are. And basically it's going to be like a back and forth. Like I want to explain like one of the points, and then I want you to kind of, explain like, what was seen in this movie that kind of supports that theme, if that makes sense.
Mm,
So, for example, I mean, obviously one of the um foundational, like, or vital points of Guardians of the Galaxy is family and friendship. And I mean, obviously we have, the Guardians of the Galaxy team, led by Peter Quill, or Star Lord, emphasize the importance of found family and the bonds formed between the team members. And despite their differences and diverse backgrounds, they come together to protect one another and the galaxy itself. So I mean, obviously, that being said, how does Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, emphasize that point and keep it going, throughout the film?
well, I mean, straight off the bat, we see Rocket's story kind of go around this whole family aspect in this one because we see the arguments, especially they kind of use Gamora as a somebody that's fighting this idea of why you saving your pet. Like that's what a lot of people see Rocket as in this team, and we see Nebula and Peter really kind of push that ideal that he is family, and we're doing all this stuff to save him, and like that's why scenes where the high evolutionary is just putting his finger up saying like wait, like I'm not done. He's like I'm trying to save my friend. He's like and then even what's it called, I think Nebula kind of portrays that so well when they finally hear his voice. She like breaks down crying because they have their friend back. And again, they're family at the end of the day, even though they're only friends. And even if you go back to the first Guardians film, they start off obviously as strangers and just people that don't like each other. At the end, they all come to this conclusion: if I die, I'm gonna die with my friends. And then when we go throughout the Guardians trilogy, they grow more as a family. And then now in this one again, they're all living together even though they have like their own little apartments. And you can see that again, that's Mantis is Peter's sister, like technically his actual sister, so that's somebody that's an actual family. And then you constantly obviously always see the relationship between Groot and Rocket. But even the way when certain things happen to certain characters in this, you can see, just the emotion on Groot's face, or towards the end when Peter's, in space, like, starting to die. You see Groot basically like crying, trying to reach out for him, and he can't reach out for him. Um, so basically going on this journey just to find, the information on Rocket to save him, to bypass everything, shows how much it means to them because of the short amount of time they have, and those little arguments that we see, especially between like Peter and Nebula with Gamora on why this is being done. And even we see this between you can argue Adam Warlock and like the woman he calls mother, because he's somebody that's just made out of a cocoon. We kind of see him being that childlike character because he was taken out too early. So we still see how he acts like a child towards family and when they ask him to do certain things. Um, and in the end, even though you kind of see the family split, it's kind of like representations in life where if say you have like a couple of siblings or whatever, it's like they go their own ways because even though like that journey with that family is closed, like you're still there but now you're off to somewhere else because all along they were always doing things for each other but never for themselves, and now that they finally feel like they completed that, they're going to go start to do things for themselves even if some of them are still together.
Right, and I agree. I mean,
Yeah.
that's kinda like me and you in a sense where it's like, we're always, like, joined at the hip when we're together, but I mean, obviously, we're in 2 different states and we're living 2 different lives, but
Yeah.
always gonna be family at the end of the day, and we're always gonna come together, and I mean, that's exactly what the end of Guardians is about. I mean, they're always gonna be a family, but each of them have to go on their own path and discover who they are or follow, what they truly believe in, and, I mean, again, even though they'll be separated, they'll be across the galaxy, they're always gonna be family, and that's the important thing to think about. And, I mean, you touched on it a little bit, but obviously, again, one of the biggest examples throughout the film is the story of Rocket and his journey and how he goes from, being an experiment to finding these friends, within, captivity, and these friends eventually becoming his family. And even though he has a new family in the Guardians, he had a pre-existing family. And I mean, obviously, we saw how tragic that ending of the family was and how that really impacted him. But we see the growth from friends to family and in all different aspects, and in across all different characters. Again, we have Rocket, going from, a group of friends, forming a family, losing that family, but then gaining new friends and then gaining a new family. Same could be said for Star-Lord and Gamora and Nebula and Groot. All of their journeys converge on a singular path where they go from being alone to finding friends and then forming a family. And I mean that's
something
no, go ahead.
Something that I also really like is when they have arguments, like especially towards the end of the film where we see Nebula, Mantis, and Drax, and Nebula, kind of is going off on Drax being dumb, and Mantis, with these certain things. It's like they fight like a family would, but like in the end, they're still together at the end of the day. And again, I didn't even touch upon Rocket and his friends. Um, but again, I would call that family because that's all he had on there. And even towards the end when he wanted to join everybody, you know they were they'll still gladly wait for him because his story isn't done elsewhere.
Mhm.
So it also teaches you the lesson of no matter how much like you may want to go and do something, it's like sometimes you have to wait and you have to finish your story elsewhere, even if you want to go play in the beautiful sky together forever and fly away. So yeah.
Yeah. Oh gosh, yeah. Yeah, this is gonna be a tearjerker.
Yeah. This
Um, a lot of films and, not only films, but a lot of, animations and TV shows, do that theme well. Where we've seen characters like on the brink of death before, and, we
Mhm.
see them wanting to just give up and, just, they've had enough. They've been through obstacle after obstacle and, they finally want to rest and, they want to join the people that they loved and, the people that they lost in the afterlife. And we see time and time after again that, the people that they lost, the people that they loved, tell them that, look, your time is not over yet. You still have work to do, in the present and the now. We'll always be here when you're ready, but you can't give up now. And
Yeah.
I mean, it was a heartbreaking scene, when he, because you could tell Rocket was just like, I'm done. He's like, I did all I could. He's like, I've been through enough. He's like, I just want to join you guys. He's like, just please let me come with you. And of course, they were willing to embrace him with open arms, but Lila basically took him and was like, look, your story is not finished yet. You still have more to do. We'll always be here for you, but you can't leave now. And I mean, that's just, again, it's both beautiful and heartbreaking at the same time, because we see that he's finally able to reunite with his friends and his family, but unfortunately he's not there yet. And
Yeah.
eventually he will be, but the important thing is that they'll always be waiting for him, and he has more good to do. And then obviously, because of him not leaving and returning to the Guardians, he's able to help them defeat the High Evolutionary. He's able to save all the children on board. He's able to save all the animals on board, and he finds a newfound purpose to keep living. And that was one of the most important effects of that scene, basically.
Yeah.
And again, it's a very heavy film. I mean, it's obviously Guardians has been very family and friend focused, but this film just really hits it on the head. Like, it is just extremely heartwarming and then heart-wrenching at the same time. And it really makes you think, about what family and friendship means to you, and how family comes in all different sizes and forms, and how a whole ragtag group of just people from all across the galaxy can become like one of the closest families you've ever seen.
And I
And
feel like especially when he talks about, they talk about stopping, running at the end of the film, again, he embraces, towards the end when he takes all the, baby raccoons, he embraces that he is a raccoon. Like that's what he was all along. And, he's not going to resent because of it. This is no matter, he took that as a derogatory thing and something that, um, and even in the first film, like, he talks about, being ripped open and taken apart over and over again. And at the end, he doesn't even kill the High Evolutionary because that's just like, no matter how much was done to him, he just knows at the end of the day that's not what he's meant to do.
Mhm.
So it's just crazy to me how much they did with Rocket in this film and across all films, and the fact that they did amazing with it. Like I really don't know how James Gunn did it. I like, again, I can't think of any flaws in this film realistically. Again, I would have to go back and watch it several times, but this is something I consider to almost be a perfect film.
Mhm. I agree. No, I agree. I mean, James Gunn is really a blessing.
Mhm.
Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 is probably going to be the best film of Phase 5. And you know, it's going to be interesting to see what he does with the future of DC. So
Yeah.
before we continue our conversation, we are ending the first part. So we are going to wrap it up here. Like I said, for people on YouTube, this will be the only part on YouTube. So if you want to listen to the rest of the conversation, just please listen to us on, all your podcasting platforms. But we are going to take a brief intermission, and we are going to be back with the second part of our conversation.